If you need immediate help, please call the National Substance Abuse and Mental Health Hotline at 1-800-662-HELP.
Bottle of wine, fruit of the vine. When you gonna let me get sober? Let me go home and start over.
Welcome to Clean and Sober Radio, brought to you in part by Jefferson University Hospitals and Thomas Jefferson University, providing excellent clinical and compassionate care in the Philadelphia region, a proven leader in healthcare and education since 1825. And now, here are your hosts, Gary Hendler and Mark Sigmund.
Hey, hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us, and welcome to Clean and Sober Radio. Clean and Sober Radio features real people with real stories about addiction to drugs and alcohol. Mark Sigmund, what's new this week in recovery news?
You know our continuing coverage on the drugs available at gas stations? Well, the president had signed a bill to recriminalize hemp THC products that was tucked into the legislation which reopened the government. Again, this is a controversial section, and it goes in 1 year, it goes into effect where they will be outlawing Delta-8 THC, some CBD products if they have a little bit of THC in it. Some of the farmers in the Midwest are up in arms about this bill, and it's possible that there's a year for them to reverse this. But if you go into any gas station these days, you can find these intoxicating substances, and there's no real age, limit on them. So you can get kids buying these THC.
Mark,
products.
in the old days, in the 70s and
Yeah.
80s, there were places called head shops where you could get amyl nitrate, you could get laughing gas, you can get whippets, you could get nitrous oxide. It's almost the same kind of thing. But that went on 30, 40 years ago, so it's not new, except the products are more lethal now.
Yes, and especially the most disturbing is this form of kratom that's being sold.
Say that,
and
you don't even hear them mentioning that.
Yeah, it's the most disturbing thing ever, but that's for another show right now.
Yeah, what else you got?
Secondly, this was really good news. China has agreed to tighten chemicals used to produce fentanyl following a visit by the FBI director he announced on Wednesday. After Kash Patel met with its Chinese counterparts, the Chinese government agreed to designate all 13 precursors and to control 7 chemical subsidiaries used to make the lethal drug that is blamed for thousands of American deaths each year. Huge part of the fentanyl crisis epidemic is these precursor chemicals. Now, they'll come from other sources, but China has been a huge exporter they have factories over there. And they're precursors to fentanyl. They send them to Mexico. Mexico, mixes them, comes across the border. And so, you saw a little bit of this during the first Trump administration, and you're seeing it again where China is actually agreeing to stop some of these precursor chemicals.
Okay, both very interesting articles. We have a great show today.
Yes,
and
we do.
You might have heard our guest chime in before we announced him. Rabbi Michael Perice is our guest today, and
let's go.
Okay, all right, here we go.
A little applause here.
Thank you.
There we go.
My pleasure.
Okay, there's no ego in this room with any of us. And he's our guest today. And the interesting story, if you don't already know, is that here is a man of God who had an addiction, and it shows you that addiction crosses every single boundary there is: color, religion, ethnicity. Is that a word, Brad?
It sounds right.
That was good. So we're going to hear his story when we come back, and it's powerful because it really shows you that any of us, all of us, are susceptible to becoming addicted to a lot of different substances. All right, we'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
Hey, everybody, this is former Philadelphia Flyer Chris Terrian, and you're listening to Clean and Sober Radio.
610-632-8601. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You can enjoy the show at any time on radio stations WWDB AM 860 in Philadelphia, WPEN 97.5 High Def 2 in Philadelphia, WGAC in Augusta, Georgia, WJBR 1010 in Tampa, Florida, and a whole host of other outlets and resources.
Yes, and you can subscribe to our podcast by going to cleanandsoberbroadcasting.com or going into the actual, app store, right? And you can actually get it delivered to your inbox every single week.
And also, Clean and Sober, which is our podcast?
Clean and Sober Broadcast,
No.
Clean and Sober Radio, but then... Yes.
Say it again.
Yes. Clean and Sober Radio is our podcast. Cleanandsoberbroadcasting.com is our website. And we are on YouTube now.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
How do people watch our
So
shows?
you would just go in and you would put in Clean and Sober Radio channel. Radio channel, and there's a whole
we have a lot
channel.
of shows on there already.
Yes, back years from before.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's pretty good. So check it out.
yeah. I should probably know that, right?
We probably should, but it's going through so many different genres now, and all over the world. So it's hard to keep up with sometimes.
What's this? I have people that do that.
Yes, including the guy that people hear talking behind the scenes right
That's
now.
right. Okay, listen. Our guest, it's our buddy of the show. He's been here before.
This is my third time.
It's the third time.
Third time.
Rabbi Michael Perice.
Hey.
Right?
How's
Welcome
it
to the
going?
show.
It's glad to be back.
It's been a couple years.
Yeah, it's been a couple years, but I always like coming back because I always love talking recovery and addiction. I think it's one of those topics that is becoming more encouraged to talk about, but we don't always get into the nitty-gritty and hearing about the real life stories and how they impact our lives and the people we love.
So let's talk about how you got here.
Yeah.
I don't mean you drove here today.
I did drive here today.
You grew up in Jersey, right?
Yeah, South Jersey. I come from a very interesting makeup. My father is Sicilian, raised Roman Catholic. My mother's, Russian Jewish. And so they're two people who probably should never have gotten together who did. And I'm a pizza bagel. I think they created a very weird person that has made me very unique in many ways.
And your family was in the funeral business, huh?
Yeah, many generations. My great-grandfather, he started Goldstein's Rosenberg Rayfield Sachs Funeral Home. My mother is now the president of that company, which is located in the Northeast, 6410 North Broad Street, Southampton, and one in Atlantic City. And my brother Joe is also a funeral director. Very proud. They do a very important work.
That's amazing.
Made me want to, I never wanted to be a funeral director. But my mom, in a very real way, was a rabbi in my life when I didn't have one, because I don't know if I've spoken about this, but when I was growing up, when I was 10 years old, my rabbi had his wife murdered. It's a very famous story. His name was Newlander. And
that was a real famous story.
Very famous story, and it completely changed the way I understood my faith at the time, because I was very suspicious, didn't know if I believed in God. And you hear something like this, you go, well, these guys are fakes and phonies. I want nothing to do with this whole thing. And so I had my bar mitzvah at age 13, and I was done. Now, as a Jew, you always identify as Jewish. It's an ethnicity, it's cultural, but religiously, I was very alienated. And so during the time when I considered myself a secular Jew, watching my mom help families was very rabbinic in a way that I didn't understand.
So when you were a young kid, you hung around with you did all the things that kids did.
I did all
Your
the things
bad
kids
boys
did.
right?
I mean, I ran in the crowd that was very into Fish and the Grateful Dead, and we went to concerts, experimenting with a lot of drugs. I experimented with pot at an early age, hated pot. From the moment I did it, I never liked it. It always made me feel very anxious. I never understood how anybody enjoyed it. Tried MDMA at a very young age, but nothing ever stuck. Nothing ever stuck, and it made me think I didn't have an addictive personality, which I would come later was a false assumption.
So do you have siblings?
I do.
Anybody else in your family, you don't have to mention names, have addiction problems?
Yes, my uncle had a lifelong heroin addiction, but he was adopted. So I didn't think there was any kind of, since we didn't have a blood relation, but he had a lifelong addiction.
Yeah.
And he sadly passed away.
And how did that affect your family? And did you know at a young age, or when did you realize?
Oh,
that there
I
was
knew at a
something
very
wrong?
young age that, my uncle, sadly, he lived with my grandmother his whole life. He was on a methadone. He would always have to leave early in the morning to go to a methadone clinic. And I
Yeah.
knew that from a very young age. And I grew up hearing stories about how he was very wayward. And, while the active heroin use didn't last forever, but he went on to methadone. He was, just very troubled because of a lot of, I guess, personal trauma and issues that he only felt he could deal with through drugs, which taught me the valuable lesson that a lot of addiction is a spiritual disease. But it never led me to think like I had something that would, one day lead me down a similar path.
To the audience, and I'm sure, in the Jewish community growing up, it was like
Unspoken.
Jews don't use drugs and they don't drink. It was
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah.
And, when I started the first AA meeting in a synagogue in 1985, they were a little nervous about that because Jews don't, that was such misinformation. And it was almost in a lot of Jewish families, if you were, you got addicted to stuff, it was really hush hush.
Yeah, you were the black sheep.
Yeah,
It probably ruined a lot of people's lives because today we'd find them treatment. It'd be very accepted that we would want to help this person. But then, it felt like there was something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You were wrong
Yeah.
in a very real
Yeah.
way.
Was that like, okay, how did you grow up?
So I grew up Catholic.
Okay. Was there a stigma? What was it? Or nobody gave it?
I didn't run into much of a stigma. My dad would drink, but not drink a lot.
Right.
You'd get wine with when you got old enough.
Yeah.
Basically, actually, you could be underage and have the host, and then you get wine
Yeah,
with it. But there wasn't
I
this
think it
kind
was
of
far
stigma.
more common in the non-Jewish, maybe in many Christian
Yeah.
communities, that alcoholism was a real thing, and I think AA kind of was born out of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
And so maybe the stigma was there to a degree, but it was maybe more understood that this could happen to somebody.
Yeah, I would say.
And the stereotypical stuff. If you're Irish, you're drunk all the time. If you're this, you're this all. All that nonsense, which wasn't really. There was some truth in all stigmatism, but look, we all know now this affects everybody.
Well, isn't it crazy? Because I've talked to some of my clients about this, how when I was growing up, I thought to be an addict, you literally had to be living on the street
Yep.
or you had to be robbing banks.
Yeah.
I never, like to me, it was so foreign and people never really taught you that you could have an addiction problem and still quote unquote function.
And we wouldn't have thought of many of the people like with these. We talking about gambling addiction, how never. But there was tons of people with gambling addictions that you never thought of them as an addict. You thought of them, they're an F up, they're messing up, But
Yeah.
it was a real addiction.
Yeah. Hey, if you're joining us right now, we have the pleasure of talking with Rabbi Michael Perice, a real live rabbi
Yeah,
who
the
is
real deal.
in
The real
recovery.
deal.
And I'm sure he's not the only one, but the great thing about
No,
Michael,
far from the only one. And
Yeah.
I've had a lot of recognition in this kind of small space, but I really need to say that there's a lot of rabbis in recovery.
and other religions.
And other religions. Many of them some have chosen to come out and be vocal about it.
Yeah.
Maybe not as vocal as I have, though. I think I've changed some of that. But many, decided that it's important to stay anonymous, and that's fine too.
So that's who we're speaking with. If you'd like to talk with him, give us a call directly into the studio, 610-632-8601. That is 610-632-8601. And you know what I'm fascinated with, Michael, when you came out and told your congregation about your issues, that must have been-
2021.
was that a scary thing?
Yeah, it was scary for many of the people around me, many of my family members. Like, why work so hard and get to the place where you are just to possibly undo it all? But I had such a conviction. Many things in my life I see in my head before they actually happen. It's almost like I manifest them into reality. And this was just one of those things where I felt such a conviction based on, one, how blessed I feel to be alive.
Yeah.
Two, how many friends I've lost. But three, that I just knew it could do a lot of good. And then four, this is also important. It's about me.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to feel comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel comfortable walking around in the world where this wasn't something that was a hidden, embarrassment, which I've never felt embarrassment
When
about.
you were up on the pulpit
Yeah.
and you started to talk to your congregation and tell them about your addiction, were you watching individuals how they?
Well, it happened on a Zoom call because it was COVID.
Okay.
And I think about 80 to 100 people joined, and
Yeah.
many of them thought I was going to say I was sick or
Yeah.
that I was quitting
Yeah,
or that I was we were pregnant. They couldn't figure it out, but it was so important to me. It was the 10-year anniversary of my recovery. And I will say 98% of the people in that community was beyond positive. There were the 2% where I heard, Rabbi, I don't need to know this about you. Rabbi, it distracts from your work. And that's fine. I'm not there to convince anybody.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of what you find, and I've heard this with people who share their recovery stories,
Yep.
the vast majority of people are overwhelmingly supportive.
That's super, isn't it? Isn't that great?
Yeah, is it? Let me ask you this, because sometimes I've had where everybody supports me and then a couple don't. Did it bother you?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm a
Like,
people pleaser. I'm a rabbi. You're trying,
Yeah.
and then I'll never forget it. Somebody who was like a big leader in my community, a vice president on our board, said, Rabbi, you won this game 98-2. You're really going to worry about the 2. And I thought that was a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't want to upset anybody, but at the same time, I have this sense of chutzpah that I have to do what I have to do, and I don't let that stop me. But yeah, it bothers me. I don't want anybody to think of me negatively. Of course not.
We are people pleasers, aren't we?
and there's a vulnerability to
I've
coming
become
out
less
and-
of a people pleaser in time.
Yeah.
It just I think it's a natural process. Yeah.
But there is like too. It's like you're getting yourself so vulnerable by telling people, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a really hard thing.
But vulnerability is an amazing muscle to flex. And I think when you flex your vulnerability muscle, it prepares you for some of the more challenging moments that will occur in life, and they always occur.
Did your wife back you on coming out?
She was worried.
What about her parents?
I'll take that in 2 questions. My wife has never done a drug in her life.
Right.
My wife is as normie as as it gets. She literally has never done a drug, not interested in doing drugs. So a lot of my story was new to her. And was just not opposed to me being open, but do you want to risk your career in any way? And later she recognized, no, you were right. You had a vision. I'm so glad you did it. And her father, amazing man, he passed away. He was a major in the Army. He was special forces. He served in places around the world.
Oh, so he comes from no nonsense.
No nonsense.
Yeah.
And I think he thought it was a really good thing too, which meant a lot to her.
That's very. I was just wondering what kind of support you were getting.
And my family was very supportive. They knew this story a long time.
Yeah, of course they did. We all.
But it's weird when you go that public. Somebody said it,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was really funny. They said you were the most famous person in recovery from a 3-day period. It was because the story went national. It was everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I told it to the Inquirer, and I told it to a couple Jewish publications, and then it went to Apple News, and then
Oh, wow.
and my intention was there's so many news stories at this point. There
Oh,
must
my
have been
gosh,
there must have
yeah.
been USA Today has covered my story. There's a million of them. And the beauty of that was thousands of people reached out to me just
Whoa.
to share
Yeah,
their
oh, yeah.
stories, and it's become my greatest superhero strength is that people feel connected to me and are willing to share with me their stories about anything beyond addiction.
And also, as a rabbi or a priest or whatever, it gives you way more credibility on issues than just book smart.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I became a rabbi because I love people. If I had to sit in a library all day, I wouldn't be a rabbi. I mean, that's just who I am. I did this job because I love people, and this has connected me with people. But it's also become a big part of my identity in ways I maybe wasn't always prepared for.
What was your drug of choice?
OxyContin
It was Oxy.
and fentanyl.
So
but
let's get to that.
But fentanyl, that was from a pharmaceutical company. So if I had been in my active addiction today, I probably would not be alive. But fentanyl lollipops was a big one.
So in 2007,
Yeah.
you get rear-ended in your car.
Yep.
And you it leads to neck, shoulder, back injury, all sorts of stuff that you would think of. and you go see a doctor.
Yeah.
And there it goes. It starts.
And I
right?
was actually misdiagnosed. I've told this story probably 1,000 times. It's only in the last 2 years I realized I was having horrible nerve pain in my leg that was just pain beyond description. And a lot of them, for years, thought it was coming from a disc in my back. It turns out I have a very, there's a very small nerve that goes down your leg. I couldn't even begin to pronounce it. And they found out this was actually what was causing the pain.
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me. And it's been well maintained. Yeah, it was a bad accident. And back then, you know, if doctors couldn't even pinpoint it, though they kind of thought they did, you know, Vicodin was a very common prescription, and that's how it started.
That's how it started. Mark, you hear that story all the time, right?
Oh,
you get pain, you go to a doctor, and the doctor, you know, they're not trained. We know that.
It's getting better.
It's getting better.
And,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
a different world. I gotta say, it really is a different world. I mean, it was so accessible, and then you know, I never was one who went down to Florida, but you hear about the pill mills in Florida. I mean, you can't today. You can't believe that actually was even legal. The way that people would be able to walk into a doctor's office, get a prescription, get it filled right next door, go to a doctor's office a mile down the road, and do it again all day long.
Michael.
Yeah.
I grew up with that.
I mean,
it's a different drug now.
Yeah.
We grew up. We'd see the same people, the same doctor's office, the same pharmacy, the same doctor's office, same pharmacy. It's a layperson doesn't believe.
But I want to
stuff
make
like
an
that.
important point because I actually don't think my doctors were malicious, though there were malicious doctors and greedy doctors.
Yeah.
I think that they thought they were sold a bill of goods too. They were told these weren't very addictive.
Yeah.
And you know, if your patient's in pain, well, you want to help solve that pain. So I don't have malice towards at least many of the doctors.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Some were just naive and wanted to please their patients, and some were evil.
Or they were sold a bill of goods by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
pain scale.
Yeah. I mean, so
Absolutely. Again, if you want to talk to Rabbi Perice, give us a call, 610-632-8601. It's a very incredible story. So let me move on. So you became addicted. Opioids, they go on to take over your life like everybody else. April of 2011.
yeah.
You flush a bag of heroin down the toilet. You call your parents.
Yeah.
Can you feel it right now, what was going on?
Yeah,
in you?
I would even back up the story a little bit. That, you know, I had been through withdrawal one time before, maybe a year or two earlier, and I said, I'm never going to let that happen again. And, you know, it's interesting. You would think that meant like, oh, I'm going to stop. But it means you'll do anything to get what you need. And I went into a serious, horrible withdrawal to the point where, you know, I thought I was going to die. It was just the worst pain a person could feel. And I remember I wasn't a faithful person. I told you, I was secular.
Yeah.
I remember cursing at God, like, what did I do to deserve? I was angry.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine brought over a bag of heroin, and I had every intention of doing it. And I make that clear when I tell this story. I would have done anything to make the pain stop. And I walked to the bathroom, and I was going to do it on the countertop of the toilet, the back of the toilet.
Yeah.
And a feeling washed over me, and it's hard to describe, but it felt like dread. It felt like the realest moment I've ever felt, where if I did this, I was going to die. I didn't see like a vision of it, but like I felt it, like almost like a vision, like because I felt it so, and it scared me so badly. And within the time that this thing is happening, I'm like very calm and I'm thinking very clearly. It was really weird because I had never really had like any experience where in a horrible withdrawal state, I'm having a moment of clarity. But I took the drugs and I flushed them in the toilet, and the second I did, all the pain came right back. But it gave me enough time, it felt like, to make a decision I don't think I would have been able to make normally.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question, then don't answer because we have to go to a break.
Okay.
Was that a spiritual awakening?
I'll answer that when
All
I come
right.
back from
We'll be
break.
right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. the power to outscience cancer.
Hey man, this is Ricky Byrd, former member of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, an inductee to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as of 2015, and I listen to Clean and Sober Radio, and so do my friends here, right?
610-632-8601. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
We're back. Clean and Sober Radio. We're speaking with Rabbi Michael Perice, and I asked him a question. That moment of sort of clarity, was that a spiritual awakening?
Yeah, I think for me it was, and it took a long time to really understand what that was all about. Yeah. It was more like something that just stopped me in my tracks, and I didn't know how to put a vocabulary around it. But as time went on, and I entered like early recovery, I really connected that moment with something beyond myself, and I don't like to overthink it or over describe it because I know that will fall on deaf ears for a lot of people. I just know it was very powerful for me.
Wow, that is powerful. Hey, by the way, if you're just listening to us on any different type of media that you have and you want to watch us, go to Facebook, go to Clean and Sober Radio and watch us right now do the show, just like some of these folks. Judge Christopher Maddox, Michael Burke, Kathy Wolf-Collin, and Chris Maddox, Judge Maddox wants us all to know that he's from Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, okay?
Yes.
Have anybody else?
Hey, Chris.
I don't. I have all the same ones that you're talking about.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody's taking it in.
And, I'm wondering, like, it almost sounds like here is the heroin. Because this, for anybody that's not an addict, would not understand this. Like, you're sick. You have the heroin in front of you.
It will make you, it will kill you or make you feel better.
And I could tell you, 999,000 out of 1 million would use that heroin.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, was it a premonition? Was it laced,
Yeah, listen.
That's a good point.
I want to be very clear. I had most of my active addiction, I did pills, I did fentanyl, but it was always pharmaceutical grade. I always felt like some level of safety that I could measure. I took 160 milligrams of Oxycontin every day. That's not safe. But when you build up a tolerance, you have an idea of what you could do and what you can't do. So I had no interest in doing heroin. I really didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, though many addicts do because of the money, and we could talk about that. But with that said, it was an incredibly scary moment where I had the full intention of doing it, and I was going to snort it because that's how I did my drugs. But whatever came over me saved my life. I mean, whether it was going to be then in that moment or later on, I felt like I just had this premonition that I was going to die. It was very real.
All right, you call your parents.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
So they knew I took pain medicine. I mean, because everybody knew I was but they didn't know nearly how bad. So they were upset. Yeah. But more than anything, they just wanted to help me. Now, they wanted me to go to rehab. Now, I worked in politics early, nothing serious, but I had this idea that I might work in politics one day, and I thought, oh, this is going to ruin my life. Not the drugs. Going to rehab was going to ruin my life. But I'm very fortunate. I come from a family of means. The next day, they were able to get me a private Jewish, he happened to be Jewish, but private Jewish doctor who specialized in addiction. And I did this kind of one-on-one counseling with this doctor, and I sat down, and I'm still dying. Remember this? I haven't had anything. And he said, do you want me to help save your life? And I said, yeah, whatever it takes. He said, there's a medication. He says, it's controversial. Some people it doesn't work for them. Some people abuse it. But he said, if you listen to me, if you do exactly what I say, I think this medication can save your life. I said, I'll do whatever it takes. And that drug was buprenorphine, Suboxone, Subutex, and it worked for me. And many people said, oh, you're just replacing one drug with another. And that never felt true to me because I took 160 milligrams of Oxycontin every day. There was never going down. There was only going up. And in a very short time, I was able to start weaning off this medication. Yeah. Now, I was on it for a decade. I was on years. And I even take it to this day on a maintenance dose if I have pain or but I never felt like how an opiate felt. I never got high from it. And I never felt, some people abuse it in that they'll use it to hold over until they can get the drugs. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to get better. And it gave me the space and time to do that.
That's exactly what it's for. In the old days, even in rehabs, you could be on nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. Because
I think that
was the old thinking. And, it's because, you're changing your seat on the Titanic is what you're doing.
But it's a dangerous thing. Because when you're dealing with an alcoholic, there's a risk. But the risk is not always grave in that moment. You're dealing with a fentanyl user. There's only one opportunity. And if you turn them back onto the streets, they could be dead tomorrow. So it's just, to me, it's a whole different landscape. And I'm glad to see many treatment facilities have come around to medically assisted treatment. In the rooms, as they call them, in AA, NA, it's still controversial. It's still,
I happen to think that, it's good that everybody has come around to MAT.
Yeah.
I also think it was a money issue because if this hospital, if you're going to go to a hospital who did a rehab that doesn't allow you to get on these medications, and the other rehab lets you, you're going to go to the one that lets you. And these other places are now like, oh, we got to fill these beds.
Also, the science of it. I mean, the stats on it just prove that this has dramatically helped. I mean, at this point, I don't think it's much of a debate anymore. Though when I was on it, when I first started on it, it was a huge debate.
And I can tell you as an addictions counselor that if we did not have this tool, especially for the young adults, we'd be stepping over bodies.
Yeah. It'd be, I know that, at the peak we were looking at over 100,000 overdose. Yeah. I think we're down to 70. And I was at a recovery summit recently, Ryan Hampton, who's a national recovery advocate, he's amazing. Shout out to Ryan Hampton, said, this is progress, but we can't be happy about this number, 70,000. Yeah. But it's I think it'd be exponentially worse if it wasn't for Matt. I just want to be very clear.
Absolutely. Okay, so 2011, you go into treatment.
Yeah.
You didn't come from a mindset growing up that I want to be a religious leader, all that. But in 2012, you decide to become a rabbi. Now, it's like
it happened in record time.
Like that.
It didn't feel like that, but it was like that. So what happened was I couldn't keep a job, and I started working for my family's funeral home. And it was the first time I had come in contact with rabbis since that incident I spoke about as a kid. And I had this epiphany of like, wow, I've hated rabbis for years and haven't really thought about it. And now I'm getting to see them doing this amazing work. I didn't think I'd be a rabbi. I thought maybe I'll be a Jew again. And I started practicing my religion. And then another very powerful moment happened in my life. I don't know if you want me to get into it, but very much kind of solidified my path. So
what?
It was December 2012, and it was snowing, and all the funerals that week were canceled except for one. A gentleman had died. He was in his 90s. He had one living sibling. She was like in her 80s, and she was in a wheelchair. Now, some of the Jewish cemeteries in Philadelphia are so old. The monuments are so close together that you could barely walk through them. And with the snow, it made it like impossible. So she had to sit in the car for her own brother's funeral. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I was so angry about it. And the funeral's happening, and it's freezing. And I knock on the window. I said, ma'am, my name's Michael. I'm from the funeral home. Can I sit with you? She kind of waves me in the car. And we're both sitting in the back of this car, like a van, and the window's down so she could hear. And it's just silent. And I said, ma'am, will you tell me about your brother? And she told me the most powerful story. They were in the camps. He saved her life. She told me a very heartbreaking story. So when the Nazis, they would line all the kids up, and they would go and they would say, sick, healthy, sick, healthy, sick, sick, healthy. And if you were sick, and she got sick, and her brother switched her with another kid.
Wow.
You can't even fathom.
Yeah.
But she saved her life. And so she's telling me this story, and I had like this realization that I've never just sat and listened to anybody. I can never F up in my life. I'm always talking, and I just listening. And it's just like I'm like having this moment where I'm just like fully immersed in this conversation with her. And I could hear the service wrapping up behind me. And I'm not much of a Jew. I just started practicing it. But there's a prayer called the Mourner's Kaddish. It's the only prayer I knew because I worked at a funeral home. It's the most famous prayer in Jewish tradition. We say it at funerals, anniversary of death of loved ones. I said, ma'am, would you like to say this prayer with me? And we said it together. And at the end of it, she kind of gave me a look like I had given her the greatest gift anybody's ever given anybody. And I walked out of the car in like a daze. I said, what was that? Like, what was that and how do I do that? Like, whatever that was, I want to do that.
That's pretty cool.
And I tell that to a colleague of mine, like, you should be a rabbi. I say, are you nuts? I can't be a rabbi. Do you know my life? I'm in, like, early recovery. And, like, maybe you could. And I go to there's like a local rabbinical school. Why don't you go talk to them? So you could be a rabbi. You don't know nearly enough to be a rabbi. And so I went to Israel. I studied Hebrew for almost a year, X amount of months, just to learn I didn't know anything. I had to learn but I got accepted. And for the first time in my life, it felt like the wave was carrying me instead of battling. My whole life battling against the waves.
You know, it's amazing because, you never know the path you're going to take.
Yeah.
If you didn't go to that funeral,
Yeah.
if that lady wasn't sitting in the car,
That's
I guess
life.
I guess you felt, wow, I'm really doing something really good
Let me
for
up the ante to you.
humanity.
Let me up the ante on you. I met my wife at rabbinical school. My wife worked at the rabbinical college. I never go to rabbinical college. I don't meet my wife. Forget my career. I don't have my son. So it's just
Yeah, I know. It's
the ripples are
Yeah,
just
yeah.
they go out. But it's everything left for you can't think of it.
Look,
But
if we weren't addicts, we wouldn't be sitting here.
I mean, if I never got an addiction, I don't know where I'd be. I know
Yeah.
my life would look radically different. But that's
Yeah. Hey, we're having a great conversation with Rabbi Michael Perice, a rabbi in recovery for decades.
And I always say a rabbi in recovery, not a recovery rabbi, because some people want to make it an identity. And I always just wanted to be a rabbi. I never wanted to be a recovery rabbi.
I get it.
Though I've become known as one. Though I say I'm
Yeah.
a rabbi in recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what do we call him? He's the house rabbi for the show.
I better
we,
be.
We have a house lawyer for the
Okay.
show. We have a house rabbi
Yeah.
for the show.
We have a house mobster.
We
show.
do have a house mob.
Well,
so we
my
have a hitman.
grandfather on my dad's side was
Yeah.
a bookie.
Oh, was
so
he a
I got
bookie?
Okay.
wild ones in my family.
610
Going way back.
632 8601. 610 632 8601. Hey, I want to mention something for our folks in recovery. If you're not doing anything this next Thursday, there's an organization around here called DARA. Mark, are you familiar with that organization?
I sure am.
Okay. And the person that runs that is our dear friend, Judge Andrea Duffy. And DARA is the Drug Addiction Resource Alliance, and they're having their year-end event. That's next Thursday, November 20th at 6 p.m. to 7 at the, let's see, where she's at the North Penn YMCA in Lansdale. And what she's doing this year, she's having people that have gone through the program, and they're going to talk about their success stories. And it's really positive. DARA organization, DARA, look it up, Facebook, wherever you want to look it up. And the event is next Thursday, the 20th of November at 6 p.m. at the North Penn YMCA. And it'll be a great event.
Yeah, it really is a great event. I mean, there's refreshments.
There's vendors there from all different rehabs.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's a good thing to support,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we got that. Andrea, I hope you're happy. You're our favorite judge.
Well, we have a couple resident judges.
Yeah.
Judge Christopher Maddox.
Judges are on the front
Judge-
lines making a difference
yeah.
in this.
We have a Supreme Court Justice of Pennsylvania.
We have
Kevin
a governor.
Doherty.
We have a governor, too.
The governor, yeah. But we got a rabbi today. Let's
Yes,
focus on
let's
this
go
dude.
back to this.
Let me say something.
Yeah,
I
go
want to
ahead.
be, and I want a small detour. I just will say, Gary has been a good friend of mine for many years now, ever since coming out of show. I don't even know how we first really connected. But
I saw an article and I called you.
yeah, and I love that chutzpah. And
Yeah.
from there, I've just felt a kinship with you. I appreciate you. And Mark, what you do too.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you've been an advocate for me. I always tell people about you, and I think that's what the beauty of the recovery community is. There doesn't need to be a scarcity kind of mindset. We can help each other and really support one another.
And I love, I'm on Facebook, and Rabbi Perice is on Facebook, and I love how you post shalom.
Shalom.
Oh,
baby.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yes,
Which I'll be doing
I
tonight.
see
I
it
always say, send
often.
me a Shabbat Shalom and I'll send you one.
Yes.
back.
Tell Mark what that means.
It just means have a peaceful Sabbath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our
Nice.
Sabbath begins Friday night and goes to Saturday night. So I always say, send me a Shabbat Shalom and send you one right back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I
it-
like building community everywhere. And Facebook, we all know the dangers of social media, and I know in years to come we'll probably know a lot more about how it's a lot of young people astray. But I think you still can build community.
and how important is community to your recovery?
It's everything.
Everything.
It's really everything.
It's everything.
I think. Well, it's a significant part. I have found recovery in so many different places. I just learned our host Gary was a boxer. I've been boxing for a little
Let me
under.
clarify that. I boxed oranges and apples. That's the boxing I did on Delaware Avenue.
Yeah, because
I
you just
didn't-
had me like, I know Gary ran track.
Okay. But my
was
point is,
never a boxer.
whatever the thing is you do, I think you need to push yourself. I think you need to do hard things. For me, that became boxing, something I never thought I would do. I'm the boxing rabbi now. And, so it's just like recovery can come in a million different lenses, and you just got to find the things that help you.
Yeah. And as you said, community is very important. Mark and I talk about isolation a lot. That's the worst thing that you can do, especially when you first get into recovery, is to isolate.
And, when you were telling your story, about how you flushed this, and then I called your mom or your sister to mom to get into rehab. And, for anybody listening out there, it's got to be the hardest step in the world to actually, there's all that denial, right? And then there's some acceptance, I got this problem. And then we just keep using. But to actually, once you reach out for help, it's game changer,
One of
isn't
the
it?
biggest issues I think in our society is we create more space for the people who have completely messed up their lives. Because like they have nothing to lose. They go to rehab, they are living on the streets. But the people who have families, who have good jobs, we've not given them the space to say, I have a problem. We've not given them the space to go get help. So it's almost like you have to destroy your whole life to go get help. And I want to see that change in America. I want to see people being able to get help before they get to that point of no return.
Yeah. And, I'd like to get to talk about the future of recovery.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before we went on the air. So I think you just started to lead into it.
Yeah. Listen, it's a taboo subject. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll just, one of the things that happened when I went on MAT was, I told you, many people were skeptical. And I am a proven success story. And so one of the things that I'm hearing now is possibly psilocybin, psychedelics helping people. Now, I have to push the brakes real quick because I've known many people who've become addicted to these drugs. And yet I've also met many people who they've helped overcome their addiction. So it's like, one of the questions people don't want to talk about in the recovery community is how do we balance this growing research evidence that there's something that we classify as a drug that could potentially help people? And I don't have the answer to that, but I'm very open to it because people were not open to MAT, and that saved my life. Right. So I want to be open to what the future holds, but I think we need to be very careful because I have seen many people go down the psychedelic rabbit hole and never come back out the other side.
I've seen it too. And look, if you want to step back a little bit with the marijuana, there are people that are being affected by marijuana, will be affected for the rest of their lives from it. Are you seeing patients come in with psilocybin issues and mushrooms and all that?
Not much. You don't see a lot of psilocybin as somebody's main issue.
Yeah,
right.
No.
When they come in, and I have had some people that that I've known that were on very low levels,
microdosing is what they call
for depression, and said it really helped them. But what we are seeing a ton of is marijuana issues.
Yeah.
Much more than
Mark,
in the
we
past.
would talk about that for the last 7-8 years. That it's so complicated.
It's so
what
potent
they've
now.
Done.
A ton.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing it all the time.
The other one, you brought it up in the intro, Kratom.
Yeah,
The
that's
fact
another
that you
one.
can walk into any grocery store in America and buy, not everyone, because they've outlawed in a few states. And I forget I always mess it up. It's either 7.0 or 5.0. It's the more enhanced version of Kratom. People say it's like taking a painkiller. They say it is as addictive, So what are we doing? I mean, are we just sleepwalking into the next, crisis? I don't know.
Or is this just the beginning of how it's all going to end?
It's
Right?
Yeah.
Look, we as human beings want to feel good.
Yeah.
We're looking for we're hedonists.
Yeah, but can I say something that I didn't stress enough in my early days of like becoming this recovery advocate?
Yeah.
One of the saddest parts, though, I think of people like myself sharing their story about people who abused opiates, I do hear the other side of people who are chronically ill who can't get their pain medicines now because as they see it, we've made it so hard for them to get their pain
Is
medicine.
it still just as bad? Because I know for a period of time, after we put the prescription monitoring program in 2015, it tightened up.
It's really tough. I've known some people, and for people to understand, like severe pain people can become suicidal.
Yes.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Like it can be awful. And You know, I've known of people that ran into that issue and
These
could
are the
not
taboo
get their
subjects
pain.
we need to talk
you
about
know.
in the recovery community. We really do, because, while I abuse these drugs, I do not want to be the reason somebody who is chronically ill, in horrible pain, and I'm not even saying opiates would be the best course of treatment. I think research shows that in most cases, they're not. And yet, if that's what's available, so I think it's like we need to be more nuanced. It used to be the recovery community when I entered was black and white. Drugs
Okay.
bad, sober good, and for the most part, I ascribe to that. And yet, there's nuances.
All right,
There's-
we're going to continue. So we're going to take another break. We're with Rabbi Michael Perice, and let's talk about where we're all going with all this.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This is Clean and Sober Radio.
A cancer diagnosis can knock the wind out of you. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health can help. Our brand new Asplund Cancer Pavilion brings you 86,000 square feet of cancer-fighting science for truly comprehensive care. Backed by the strength of an NCI-designated cancer center. Call 1-800-JEFF now. The Sidney Kimmel Cancer Center at Abington Jefferson Health. The power to out-science cancer.
Hi, this is Dion, the Wanderer. Listen to Clean and Sober Radio. You might hear something that'll change your life. Yo!
610-632-8601. This is Clean and Sober Radio.
We are back with a rabbi who is in recovery, not a recovering rabbi.
you call me whatever you want.
All
but
right,
I-
whatever.
Rabbi
By the way, Eddie
recovery.
Kilgore's watching. Hey, Eddie, what's up, buddy? So we were talking in the break. I personally feel like, who am I to deny somebody to get out of pain? And if you're saying, well, it's abused, I think we should. If people want to abuse it, let them abuse it. But the people that need that medication absolutely should have access to it.
Yeah, it's. I was just saying, I think it's one of the tragedies of how we operate as a society. We go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
Where we had these pill mills, and you can get it's so easy, and then the government clamps down, and doctors are scared to prescribe pain medicine to people who actually need it. Let me say this for any doctors listening, judges, anybody who is a policymaker. We have to be considerate of all sides. We have to stop this overdose crisis, and yet we can't be leaving people with serious pain without any. Because, as you said, there's only one path that leads to, and it's not good.
As a practicing rabbi, and when you were, I guess, with the congregation or not, did you have to deal with families who had lost loved ones because of addiction?
So one of the interesting things about sharing my story is how many people come out of the woodworks to tell you they have grandchildren, children who are dealing with addiction issues. In my congregation, I had many of those. Nobody who had lost somebody to addiction, though. I can count on over one hand how many friends I've lost to addiction.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are gone. It's very strange. It's a very strange feeling. And I think that one of the reasons I continue to do this, and I'll just say this for anybody listening, I continue to speak. If you want to invite me to your organization, I do keto speaking. The reason I keep sharing my story is because I still think about that one person whose life can be saved. And in Judaism, it says if you save one life, it's like you've saved the entire universe. And I think that's one of the most powerful, metaphors, dictums, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, and I think about that. You save somebody's life, and then how many generations have you saved? How many thousands?
And who knows what in 3-4 generations that person will do? That person could change the world. We don't think about it like that, but we should.
That's exactly. That's like, Mark has changed the world, right?
Oh,
here.
man, I
come
wish.
on,
And,
man.
the scary part is like with this opioid epidemic, like we've lost an entire generation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking more numbers worse than World War II.
Yeah.
Right? Of young people, a lot of young people. You know?
It I hope forever changed the way people see addiction, because it used to be thought, as you were saying earlier, like you had to be this like in a shanty shack on the side of the road, or during the crack epidemic, it was very racialized, where white people, it's like racist, like who gets addicted, who does it. Now we know very clearly everybody. And it's sad that it took that to make people realize that. But I hope we never turn back and we treat everybody the same who's dealing with issues and getting them all help.
Absolutely. We get emails during the week. Excuse me. Sherry B. from San Francisco, California writes to
Sherry.
us. You know her?
No. Say hi.
Do you think that all illegal drugs now will be at some point legal?
I think a great vast majority of them could.
God, I hope not, though. I mean,
you know,
I think I think I'm such a freedom-loving American that I feel conflicted. And like, on the one hand, I'm just like, man, I don't. Who's one adult to tell another adult how to
Yeah.
live their life? And maybe there are listen, as we were saying about the hallucinogens and people, the drugs that are not commonly thought of as addictive drugs, but like, nobody can sit here and tell you crystal meth and heroin, should be illegal. I mean, if they are, there's not much of a case to be made. So I think the thing we need to do is possibly decriminalize drugs so that drug addicts don't end up in the justice system.
Well, we agree with Mark, and I agree with that. It's the penalties are too great for. Let's just talk about marijuana.
Yeah.
There are people incarcerated for long terms, and they're still in there.
That blows my mind that something could be legal today and people are still behind bars. It is a travesty of justice, and I'm hoping that it's a generational issue. This is why it's nuanced, right? Because like we're just saying, like there's a lot of people, especially if you start marijuana use young, it affects young people's brains in a negative way. And yet we shouldn't be putting people in jail for any issue that has to do with like an addiction or use.
Yeah. I mean, we're in the baby phases of all of this. Who knows where it's going to go? We know it has to change. We know that laws have to be changed. We know that the policymakers have to be thinking different ways now. But it is starting to. I know I'm involved a lot in this the state that the views are changing where we cannot incarcerate out of this.
No, in fact,
we can't, and it's getting better. It is getting better. The sentencing are different. The amount of inmates that are in our prisons is way lower now.
Yeah.
People that are violating their probation are not shot back into prison. So things are starting
It's amazing
to
we
change.
did this for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's astounding, really. But I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction. But we have to be honest. The addiction crisis in America is going to go beyond substance abuse. The fact that you can have legal gambling on your phone, and these kids are now gambling all day on their phone, huge issue.
It's the biggest problem on the campus now is gambling.
Gambling. And I mean, social media in general is just a dopamine hit to your whatever it is, your cerebral cortex. I think they're going to put labels on this stuff like they did with cigarettes. I think that like one day it's probably going to be illegal for kids to use because it's just, we know there's so many negative consequences to social media use.
Rabbi, we're coming up on the hour. It went fast, man.
It always does.
Rabbi,
It does, doesn't it?
thank you so much for coming back on the
Thank you.
show.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it. I love you both.
We love having
it's
you
a great
on
thing.
here.
Yeah.
And just keep up doing what you're doing. You
Yeah.
know? What are you doing? What does a rabbi do on the weekend?
Relax. When I was a pulpit rabbi, you have to lead services on Saturday.
Yeah.
Now that I am kind of an independent rabbi,
Yeah.
where I do a lot of life cycles, funerals, weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, hopefully doing more recovery work. I get to maybe go to services as a Jew in the pew, as they say, and relax more.
Good.
It's a different kind of life.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, help is available. Please call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-HELP. For Clean and Sober Radio, I'm Gary Hendler.
I'm Mark Sigmund.
Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for the support you give us each and every day. And have a great week.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves. I hope we pass the auditioning.
Well, did we pass the audition today? I think we had a great guest. Did we, Will?
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody have a great and safe weekend. We'll see you later.